Look at this. Okay.
What's that?
So see how the
That's
leaves,
nice.
these like teenager leaves. So like they start off with like this like deep green, and so they actually
Yeah.
Birkin is like the splattered, like you call it like Birkenstocks. They have that cork splattered look, so that's what they call it, Birkin. But yeah,
That's dope, man.
thank you.
Yeah. I don't know too much about plants besides what Vanessa knows. I always my only contribution is like she knows her stuff. So the only thing I learned from her is the secret to keeping a plant alive is making sure your pot has a drainage hole.
Yes, always.
Yeah.
I only buy pots with the drainage holes.
Hey all, thanks for tuning in to Real Talk by Our Stories, Your Legacy. Today we are going to be continuing with the 18th episode of our Rona series. It's a series which we talk about real life conversations with our friends, share our thoughts and our feelings, our triumphs and our woes as we're living through these crazy times. Before we hop into today's topic, we're going to change it up a little bit. We're actually going to do a quick intro of everyone around the table right now, just because the intro to this topic is a little bit more serious, a little bit more heavy than some of our other episodes. So we're going to hop into that before we get this long intro of kind of the topic leading into questions a little bit later. So at the table today, we have Andrew. How are you doing today?
Good, man. Living life, living the dream.
Cool. Good to hear. Zavon, how you doing today?
Good. Just putting up with the same shit every day. So
there it is. Seems like that type of thing every day. Steven, how are you?
What's up, guys? Yeah, it's Steven, if y'all don't know. And I'm just it's good, man. Back again. No, it's good. It was a kind of like a good start to the work week, but then it's a good start to the work week, and then you realize the uncertainty of tomorrow and the rest of the week. So
well, that turned dark real quick.
Yeah, right. But it's one of those things where I'm feeling good as always. Just keep trucking through and taking things step by step.
Are you okay? Is everyone okay? Because everyone kind of sound like a little depressed.
It's probably our shortest intro that we've had around just people checking in, but
same shit every day.
Yeah, man, we're getting to that point. It's our breaking point. We're just tired. It's also late. Okay, well, now that we've kind of got around the table, we got our four brothers in this room today. Socially distanced, of course. This is all virtual, so not in the same space. We're being safe. With it being the beginning of a new month, it is November, so we all know all the fall things are happening right now. You got pumpkin spice everything. You got holiday tunes being played way too early. You got trees being put up before Thanksgiving. Crazy. If you guys disagree with me on any of those things, that's fine. You can do that. I just don't like putting up my trees before Thanksgiving and playing Christmas music that early. However, with all of that jolly good and all that stuff starting to hit the stores and just people's homes, the topic we're diving into today is specifically around men. And ladies, don't feel like we're not including you on this. Some of this will pertain to you a little bit, but for right now, we're kind of focusing on this men's health and everything. Just because if we look at everything, June is technically officially Men's Health Month. And the purpose of that is really just heightening the awareness of preventable health problems in men and encouraging the early detection and treatment of diseases among men and boys. But being in November is almost, it's kind of like a second type of month where we try to raise awareness for men's health. I think people kind of tie in November with men's health a little bit just because, we do this silly thing where it's No Shave November or Movember, as some people might call it, where men actually don't shave their face, their beard, their mustache, or whatever it is. They grow whatever they want during November. A lot of people think that it is kind of a silly, quirky type of thing that people just do for fun, or this because they're lazy. But no, there is a message behind it. It turns out, as people may not know, guys included, the No Shave November and Movember are organizations, and it is kind of a movement to help bring awareness to men's health. So the whole point of growing a mustache or not shaving your beard or whatever it might be is to basically grow the hair that people that are going through cancer treatments and whatnot cannot. So we're kind of diving into that category there. And some of the biggest problems that we face and that are preached by organizations during November are mental health, prostate cancer, and testicular cancer. It's one of those things that statistically, men usually live about 5 years less than women do. And many of the men have the mentality of, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. And they really can't tell or feel if there's anything wrong until they actually feel something and something doesn't feel right. But even then, if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. And just, majority of men are just not aware of what they can do to improve their health and all of that. And while all three of these things are important, and yes, if you are a male and you are listening, and hell, if you are a female who is listening, go get tested, go get your man tested, set him up with a checkup. It's that time of the year, just to make sure. Take that precaution. You just never know. And plus, it wouldn't hurt, especially in today's climate. Everything's all crazy and stuff. Just set up a checkup appointment. But with all that said, today on those three topics, we are going to be jumping and focusing more on mental health. And this is kind of a heavy topic to jump into, I would say good mental health is just as important as oxygen, right? You need it to survive, but there are many different reasons why men are less likely to speak about mental health problems, like depression. A lot of people might feel the depression or those feelings of depression, but they might not be officially diagnosed with it, right? Personally, and I know I speak for a lot of men that I know who have who've been diagnosed with mental health issues, but do nothing about it because they think that admitting it makes them weak. They don't want to go to the pharmacy and pick up antidepressants because, they're afraid that they're going to be judged. They don't want to go to a therapist because they don't want to share their feelings with a stranger. But, if they don't talk about it, it can be tough for friends or family members to know that anything is wrong. And men don't always show the signs we often associate with depression, like sadness and hopelessness, etc. Instead, we might appear more aggressive, more angry. That's how we deal with things. We're men, in quotations. It just makes it easier for doctors and loved ones to really miss the signs that something's actually wrong with us. And as a result, we might miss out on the treatment we need to feel better. Depression is also one of those things that can't be willed away. It's a serious mental health condition that affects not only a man, but anyone's daily life, including the way we eat, sleep, feel, how we think. It can also affect our ability to work, go to school, maintain our relationships with friends, family, significant others. And depression, we can tell you right now, is not a sign of weakness. It can affect anybody, regardless of their age, race, ethnicity, whatever. And according to some facts from mental health and National Institute of Mental Health and everything, sure, genes can play a role. Men usually have a family history of depression, are more likely to develop that. Environmental stress can trigger depression, financial problems, loss of loved ones, work problems, difficult relationship with your family, significant other, whatever, any major life changes, or just stress. All those things can lead to, thinking a certain way, having depressive thoughts. And, it can occur just about in anybody, and definitely in men who have serious medical conditions like, diabetes, heart disease, or cancer, like we mentioned up front. With that being said, I think it's very important, if you're feeling some type of way, if you're feeling more aggressive, if you don't feel like yourself, it is very important to get an accurate diagnosis. And that's the thing. I know before we hopped onto this, we discussed a little bit, we feel some type of way, but have we, really asked those questions of ourselves and really got checked out on that stuff? Most of us haven't. Most people won't, to the points of what we mentioned before. With that said, if you're a guy out there and you're feeling some type of way, just ask for help, ask those questions, because we don't want it to, get to that point where suicide is the only option that you have, right? That is a big thing about mental health. And I've lost too many friends dealing with that. So that's one of the hard things there. I think one of the major stats that kind of sticks out to suicide itself is that men are definitely more likely to die by suicide than women, just because of certain, genomes and everything with, whatever it is, what your thoughts are, other mental health conditions, not only just depression. But yeah, it's just one of those things, a lot of underlying things within your body, within your mind, but also any problems you might face, and you're just trying to get away from it. So with that said, with mental health being kind of our big kicker today as far as a topic, just want to get into today's questions, or guiding questions, however you want to look at them. So the first question I'm going to ask everyone around the table: what does mental health mean to you? Anyone can jump in.
Well, I'll start it off. So with mental, I guess with any psychological disorder, right? This or any kind of mental illness, right? Or there's a spectrum, right, of how much you have it, right? You can, it's all, down to the individual level how it's diagnosed. And so, like, everyone does have a little bit of anxiety. Everyone does have a little bit of depression. It's a chemical imbalance in your brain, right? You physically can't generate, enough serotonin to keep you happy, or to keep that, you know what I mean? Your body also, like Tyler, you said, like, you feed off the stress in the environment, and so your body kind of shuts down almost, and you stop releasing that serotonin, and that's how your body can tell you that you're depressed, or that you're feeling some type of way. So really, it's that, the medical element and the chemical element goes into play, but there's also generational depression, right? And generations of it, and it's more of like the environment and the mental, right? The existential things that play into like that generational pass down, which is like, I want to talk to like Asian men, right? Asian men, I've found, and this is just my personal observation, is they're more the ones likely to just, even though they're unhappy in a relationship, they're more likely to stay in the relationship for the stability. They're willing to, like, if it's not broke, why fix it kind of mentality. And that's really like, kind of like what our elders and our grandparents kind of came to the USA with, that mindset of, if it's not broke, don't fix it, because everything else in my life is broken. Why do I need to break this one if I don't have to? And it gets passed down to, I guess, our generation the most, because even specifically for me, I'll be honest, I didn't have the best upbringing. I grew up not knowing my dad. My mom was in and out of my life. I was moving homes between family members. Having that constant environment. I saw a therapist and a counselor when I was 5 years old, and they tried to, because I had anger management issues as a young 5-year-old kid who didn't even know what emotions were. right? And you're just angry for no reason, like kind of like what you're saying, Tyler. Like you're just so like this built up rage, and you don't know why, because you don't understand your feelings, but it's because you're moving around. It's because you don't have true parents that are looking after you. Granted, I had uncles and my mom's siblings and grandparents look after me, but it was never the same. And when you don't have a hold of your life, you feel like you don't have control. You feel like you're spiraling almost. And I'll admit it, I'm kind of like shy to go to see a therapist, because it is a sign of weakness sometimes. It is a sign of, but it's also a sign of strength, of accepting, hey, like there is really something wrong with me, and there is something that I need to do about it. Because at the end of the day, there are people who love me, who care about me, who depend on me, not even depend, who want me and to stay in their, stay alive. And it's, I'll be honest, like I get those intrusive thoughts sometimes, like, and it's scary too, because I carry, I conceal carry. I always have a firearm with me and a weapon on me, and it's those dark thoughts that slip in, like, hey, I could end my life right now. And it, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like you try not to think that way, but like, you get to a dark point in your life and you're like, man, should I, I can do it. And that's the scary part, because now you're starting to develop a plan. You're starting to, rationalize it, logic. That's the scary part. You start to develop a plan on how you're going to commit suicide, and it's a scary place to be when you don't have support. And I'm lucky enough for my family support and my friend support, obviously, that I can reach out to anybody. Like I've reached out to a handful of friends, and I've told them, open up, like, hey, I just had this dark thought, this really dark thought, and I don't know what to do about it. And like, what they say, like, about bad dreams? If you have a nightmare, talk about it so it doesn't come true. It's kind of like you want to take that approach. If you talk about it, it's not gonna come true. You know what I mean? You're gonna have people say, hey, really, like, I'm here to listen, dude. Like, I'm here for you. You can't end your life. You know what I mean? And sorry,
Thanks. Yeah,
that was
thanks
a deep. That's how I feel about mental health, and I guess this is kind of my therapy, right?
Yeah, appreciate you. I mean, it's a therapy for all of us. Appreciate you for telling us, Andrew. And honestly, like you said, we all have our own ways of dealing with anxiety or dealing with our emotions. And no one will actually, no one but yourself will know exactly what you're feeling or what you're trying to portray. But I think you said the key word is, like, at the end of the day, what we can do for others is just to be there and listen sometimes, and so, we appreciate you being open and telling us, I mean, you're right. You're not alone in this. We all have dark thoughts, I think it comes with being human. It's like, it kind of gives us the thought of, like, when we have these deep anxieties or this deep feeling of overwhelmingness, it's like, what's the point of trying to push on? Because like, it's so easy to have negative thoughts. It's like if our thoughts were muscles, it's kind of like the equivalent of, it's easier, what is it, like, it's easier to frown but harder to smile. I don't know, or maybe it's the opposite, but
I think it's something like that.
Yeah, but and so, like, with negative thoughts, it's so much easier to just wallow in your negative thoughts and let it consume you. But I think, to kind of wrap it back around to mental health and what it means to me, I think it's the same way that you take care of your physical health, your nutritional health. I think that's, taking care of your body. You got to take care of your emotions too, and your thoughts, because they play a huge part. A lot of people may think that to be like a successful person, it's usually, body and mind sometimes, but there's all these elements, so a lot of people, like, I feel like there's more elements to our body than just mind, body, spirit, right? I feel like thoughts and emotions should be its own category, because all that plays into, like, the equilibrium of how we balance ourselves. I think you mentioned a really good key word earlier, Andrew, was you mentioned it more in the chemical sense, but I think you can use it more in the all types of sense, like metaphors and everything, the imbalance. I think, it's tough in our lives, from work, from relationships, whether that's with your significant other, to your friends, to your family, to just from work, from school, from, I don't know, whatever, just trying to like figure out your life goals. It's hard to balance things because, you're pulled in every direction. And that's why, we always feel like we don't have time for a lot of things or stuff like that. And so to me, mental health, I think it's about just taking care of, like, learning how to control your emotions, and learning how to accept your emotions too. Like, I think man up in a way where it's okay to cry, or it's okay to um, express how you feel, because I don't think that makes you less of a man. I think, and you brought it up too, Andrew. And it's like sometimes from one perspective, we're like, it's weak to go talk about our emotions, but at the same time, it's a sign of strength, because I think you're accepting it and you're attacking it head on. I think for me, man, I struggle too, because it's like I battle with myself. I think from when I was young, I always knew that the greatest enemy is my inner me. I always like had that tagline that I always remembered. And I think yourself is always your worst enemy, because when it comes to mental health, you are your biggest critic, you are your biggest doubter. And like I could, I don't know, create a new product and make $1 million, and my mind will still find a way to put my own self down. Like, nope, you made $1 million, but you're still not Jeff Bezos, so you're still a fucking loser. Like, there's always ways. So I think mental health is just learning how to first accept that you're having these thoughts, and then control it. Like it's not the end. It's and however you control it, whether that is talking it out with someone and expressing it, or finding an outlet for it in a creative way. But ultimately, I feel like it's just the act of pushing through and not giving up.
I think it's easier said than done too.
Yeah.
When you're in a place that's pretty dark, it's kind of hard to pull yourself out right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I hear what you're saying, right? And like I know it, because like when you get to at work, when you have your annual mental health awareness day, and like all these presentations and briefs you go to, and they talk about these resources and stuff, but like until you've actually been there, like yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean, I've had people pull me out, right, and pull me out of that dark spot. But when you're growing up, like and mental health issue stems from an event, whether event space or like over a period of time, and it's like you really sometimes spiral. Even if it wasn't for like to be saved in a sense by someone else saying, hey, this, I really think there's something wrong, like how about the people who don't get saved? You know what I mean? And this leads into the second questions a little bit, where I think mental health is getting worse with everything going on, because you see on social media all the time, and this really bothers me, because it's like that, like, oh, men are trash, men are fuck man, and it really bothers me, because I consider myself a pretty good guy, and like what I mean, and that there are good guys out there, right? And it really like upsets me, but it also disappoints me, because that person who hate, I'm going to talk in heterosexual terms here, when some girl was done wrong by a dude, life gave her a dark box of bad men, and it's like she's been screwed over so many times, and it's like those bad guys also probably have have been in a bad environment. You know what I mean too, and it goes back to mental illness because, if you talk about a getting into a relationship and men are abusers, right? It's statistically shown that men are the abuser, and I know there's statistics flip the other way around that men are on the victim side, but it's like go back to the majority statistic, right? Men are the abusers. They're the ones beating their wives. They're the ones killing. All those horror stories are men are the ones doing it, and they have mental disorders. They have to have it. You know what I mean? And it's like how those are the people who aren't saved. How do you pull them out? And it's like with my experience, I can't imagine what my life would be like with if someone didn't save me. You know what I mean? If someone didn't say, "Hey, there's something not right with Andrew here. What's going on?" Or even just my friends and family, "Hey, are you feeling okay? Like, what's really going on?" You know what I mean? It takes that mental resiliency to even just say, instead of saying, "Yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me." It's more like, "Hey, really, like, this is what I'm going through." So even just saying it, you know what I mean, or telling someone, like, even if they're close to you, it's those resources. Yes, when they work, they're helpful, but when they don't work, when people don't have access to those resources, you know what I mean. I can't imagine. You know what I mean. It's a vicious cycle. That's why it's getting worse in our current climate because men with mental disorders who don't talk about their emotions and are this masculine kind of guy, you know what I mean? The bad guy, the bad boy. And it's like they probably got stuff going on too.
Zvon, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Not sure where to start, obviously, because it's a heavy topic. But
for sure, yeah.
Going off of like with what Andrew's saying, it's like we do not know what people are going through. I mean, masculine, feminine energy, whatever you want to believe in regards to your emotions and how you feel about yourself or about the things in the world. I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't place a moral judgment on your emotions, whatever that may be, whether it's like anger, fear, sadness, joy, happiness, jealousy, whatever it may be. But I think it's never wrong to analyze our emotions and ask ourselves why we feel in such a way. But what's more important is how we respond with those emotions. Like it's not wrong to feel angry, but if you go out of your way and like kill somebody, like, yeah, that's where it becomes a problem. And self-awareness, contemplation, introspection, I think it's really important. It's really important to analyze our emotions and our responses following said emotions. Like some of us, or like all of us, we have instances in our lives where we're angry at someone and we yell at them. Some of us go beyond that and it can get physical and whatnot. And we let it get the best of us. And, that's tough to overcome. And then you also have like the longevity of mental illnesses or something like depression. Now, I'm not one to speak on depression because that is just, you have the clinical term and definition of it, as well as the diagnosis, and then you have like just the state of being depressed, which we all go through at some point of our lives, whether we're clinically diagnosed as depressed or not. And for me personally, I went through that last year. It was just all of 2019. It was so weird. I was just in a depressive state. Like I did not want to socialize with anyone. I really didn't want to talk to anyone. The job that I really grew to love, it felt very static to me. And I didn't know what to do, honestly. And it's not like it was like a burden for me, but it was just like, man, I've lost all drive in my, I didn't feel as driven in my life at like all of last year. So personally for me, what I did was like, I was just trying to do the things like I love. And I kept doing it, but it felt fake. It felt ingenuine. It was, I don't know, it was definitely a rough patch, but I don't want it to sound like too serious. It was just more of a moment for me to like introspect and reflect and just take time away from folks. And I have no regrets doing that because I did do a few things that, alone that I was really, happy that I kind of felt like that dopamine hit and whatnot. Like I went to a concert by myself. I went to a few concerts. I had fun. And I did talk to one person about it briefly, and they completely understood what I was getting at. They're an older individual. I look up to them highly, and their advice was essentially to either do something that you used to do that you really loved before, even if it's dating back to like when you were a kid, or B, spark up your life. And that part right there, option B, was actually advice that I also heard growing up as a kid, but never really, what I say, that like, I never really consciously thought of. So I think that's true. I think there's some truth to that something needs to really spark in my life, whether that's something good or honestly something tragic. Because like something like that, you're put into like a heightened state of awareness, whether it's like in a car accident or you get like a new job opportunity, something that sparks that drive in you because it's something different. It's a change. And hopefully for the better. But again, it comes down to how you respond and react to it. So that's just me and my general take on like being aware of like the mental health issues and whatnot. Just like my recent personal experience. But, I try to get through it. And to be honest, I did experience it again this year, obviously with lockdown and whatnot. And it's just like, at first when we got on a lockdown, I was like, I was in that heightened state of awareness, tragedy. So I'm like kind of like pacing back and forth, doing things, checking up on people and whatnot, making sure everything's okay. And then, months down the road, it literally, although this is my shtick, it was the same shit every day. Although it sounds, comedic when I say that, it's also real shit. It's the same shit every day. So then I found myself at one point just like at a depressive state again. And not to mention it, I can't imagine what other people are going through, because when you're trapped at home and when you're trapped at home and you're cut from entertainment, like going to concerts, movies, sports, events, you can't go out, you can't see people like in person, and you're trapped at home in front of a screen, nothing but the internet, where social media and mainstream media are just broadcasting negative news. Can you imagine what people are going through? Like the mental and emotional breakdowns they're having? That is crazy. That is just ridiculous. And I'm not going to go too deep in that rabbit hole because I have a lot of, conspiracy theories about that. But like that is just some tough shit that the whole like world's in. So, and I have no answers for how you can overcome that. It's tough. It's like, yeah, you're safe at home, but you have no freedom. And this is why I understand, and not to go down the rabbit hole of like politics, but that's why I understand why people are fighting against lockdowns, and they want the country to open up again. So you can be safe, but you doesn't mean you have freedom. So yeah, like the mental health issues is a real thing, and much worse, especially this year.
Yeah, I think it's definitely hitting a lot harder this year with the regard of just the current climate and with the pandemic and staying safe and everything. I think you brought up very good points there, just talking about, it's a routine thing. we get into routines. And we've talked about this before in past episodes, maybe not so in depth, but like burnout and how we are very comfortable with putting on a mask, and kind of just acting like we're okay in the sense of like, we might be dealing with anxiety and just stress and just burn out, and we just don't, you don't find yourself alive in a sense when you go do stuff anymore. It's like, it's one of those things, like, go to work, same thing every day, same shit, different day. You get burned out of it, and then everything starts to suffer. You kind of have to realize that. Usually can't do it by yourself because you're just not aware of it. Someone else calls you out, whether it be a friend asking if you're good, and then you really have to kind of sit back and really think about that. Or your boss comes over and says, like, I don't know, you slipping. I'm like, I had no idea I was slipping. But then you can either have burnout and other things, like your fun activities, whatever that may be, running, sports, gaming, whatever, and it's the same thing. Just like you said, we're, in lockdown, like we have stayed indoors mostly, and it takes away that sense of freedom. And while being in front of a computer screen all day for some people isn't bad, for a lot of people it is. It's just like, oh, this is great, I can just be at home all the time. But like, it's a sense of routine. Like, okay, I'm just stuck inside, not doing anything. The kids are screaming their heads off. I can't get rid of them at school. The dog or the cat is going crazy, knocking things over. Haven't gone to the store. The food I have eaten is the same every day. It just gets tiring. You get burned out on it, honestly. And it's tough, especially in today's climate. Like there's just, yeah, this year has been crazy for that regard. I think it's becoming more serious. I think this kind of almost sped that up a little bit, brought more energy to the serious side of things, almost like a catalyst. But whether I think it's becoming more serious because I think more people are starting to talk about it. I think mental health has always been one of those things that affects a lot of people, and a lot of people, even 50 years ago, would be like, well, depression, you gotta suck it up. Quit being a pansy about it. And that's one of the terms that, Stephen, you said earlier, was just man up. That's kind of come into a thing like, with just kind of a thing with men, it's like, oh, you got to man up because you're supposed to be tough. You can't show emotions, and that's kind of one of those things like, do you really say that anymore? Especially with this climate. I know a lot of people are still stuck using that term, but it's one of those things. So a lot of people just hid those feelings, just because we're supposed to be the tough people, the tough guys. We don't take shit. If someone hurts our feelings, we don't have feelings. We just put it aside and we truck through it, and we are supposed to be that type of person. When in reality, we as men typically have, some of the more dangerous jobs in the world, construction, whether that be whatever, trees, actual things. Granted, yes, I know women are in the profession. But even, back in the day, 50, 60 years ago, it's kind of that thing with, I know we're fighting for the change and the equality there, but it was one of those things like the men went out, did the work, hard labor, whatever, women stayed, and their job was the home. Some people still agree with that, and a lot of people don't. And that's one of those things. The times are changing, but going with that mentality, it's like, oh, guys always have this hard face, hard heart, black heart. We don't have feelings, and if we show them, we're weak. So I think with all of that said, and it becoming more of a serious issue now, just mentally, just on all the guys and everything, it kind of leads us into our last point, that society basically tells men that it's just not acceptable to have too many feelings, right? So for us, how do we, as this generation and the new generation, younger generation coming up, how do we change that status quo of making it look like men are too weak if they have too many feelings and emotions, if they ask for help or anything like that? And how do we get men starting a conversation, just talking to each other about mental health? You know, how do we do that? That's a tough question. It's a loaded question, but
Yeah, I mean, just like you said before, I mean, it's easier said than done, and I acknowledge that too. You know, from my own perspective, you know, it's like I said, I can only speak for myself, but it's the idea to continue to talk about it, you know, to acknowledge how I'm feeling, because you know, I think it's like anything in life. I believe if you ask the right questions, or if you keep asking how to do anything, the answers will eventually come. And but you know, it's tough. I think we have to just I think at least lead by example yourself, because you know we all know the typical guy talk, the locker room talk, you know, that bullshit. Like I don't believe in that. Just the same way I don't believe in inside jokes. You know, like one of my pet peeves is telling inside jokes at a group when there's outsiders who are in that group. I you know, it's that same it's that same culture. You know, like I said, I can't give you, I don't know a solution to break it down. I can only talk about, like, for me, leading by example is, you know, for like, let's say you're talking to your nephew or you're talking to your son, or, you know, just a kid you're mentoring. You know, it's kind of like, uh, you know, especially if you've been through it yourself, where, you know, you didn't notice how you were feeling until someone pulled you out of it, you know, like the way Andrew was talking about it, or Tyler was talking about it, or Zavon, where, like, you know, sometimes when you're spiraling or you're just feeling in a depressive state, or whatever state of emotion you're in, sometimes you don't see it. And sometimes it takes that one person to really tell you how it is, that you can see yourself from, you know, the outside. And maybe it's just doing the same thing and passing that torch on, you know. If you see a kid who's down about it, maybe ask them to talk about it. You know, I like what Andrew said earlier. It's like the equivalent of you having a bad dream. You know, to talk about it is to, in a way, combat it and possibly prevent it from manifesting. You know, and so, you know, it's one of those things. Like I see, you know, I see like how women in my life talk with my nieces, or talk with other women in their lives. It's all about, like, it's, acknowledging, like, hey, it seems like you're feeling down, what's going on, or what's, and just offering the chance for you to listen and not tell them what to do, but just offering the opportunity that for them to, that it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to cry. It's okay to, just even if you don't have the words for it, just talk it out. Cause maybe that is a way. And then again, like I said, it's not me giving a solution, because it's harder than that. It's bigger than that. It's like politics. It's bigger than just voting for a president. Like, it goes deeper than that. Um, it's like, if I had a pinpoint where to start chipping the shovel at, or the pickaxe at, to like chip away at something, I would say maybe it's our society, maybe it's our culture. Let's start there. And it's funny because, like, the same guys. I'm just speaking stereotypically. Uh, I'm not speaking at any calling out any one person. Not here, but but the stereotypical guys of like, yeah, we're beating our chests. We eat, red meat straight from the cow, no cooking, and like beating our chests. And it's like, we don't talk about our emotions. Those same stereotypical guys have their headphones on listening to love R&B music. So it's like, those guys listen to those good music because it's good music and it makes us feel something. So I feel like we need to like kind of break down more walls and be like, you can listen to Drake at the gym, and you can still talk about your feelings out in the open.
Steven, you got me on something, so I had to look it up. So you guys remember Tupac's song "Keep Your Head Up," right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is one bar in there that really just fucking hits home with the whole entire song, and it's he's addressing a bunch of different issues, but if you really listen to it, he's addressing one issue, and to dedicate a whole verse to this issue. So I'm
I
gonna
think I
read it
know
out
what you're
loud.
gonna say. Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. All right, you know what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
You know what makes me unhappy? When brothers make babies and leave a young mother to be pappy. And since we all came from our woman, got our name from our woman, and our game for our woman, I wonder why we take from our women, why we rape our women, and do we hate our women? I think it's time to kill for our women, time to heal our women, time to be real with our women. And if we don't, we'll have a race of babies that will hate the ladies that make the babies. And since a man can't make one, he has no right to tell a woman when and where to create one. So will the real men get up? I know you're fed up, ladies, but keep your head up. So back to the culture and to the idea of it, right? You break it down to when we were hunter and gatherers, right? And this is just basic like gender roles, right? Men were the hunters, women were the gatherers, right? They were at home taking care of the household, making sure that that man had a roof under his head, that if he had kids, they had kids together, that they were watching the kids, that they were working with the other females to make sure that their village was okay. But at the end of the day, what were men doing? They were doing it for women. I mean, honestly, right? A man can't. I can't. I don't know any man out there that can make a fucking baby by himself. But it goes back to like we did everything for women. So why don't we as men, as a society, shift our train of thought to our purpose is to support our women, right? At the end of the day, like I don't care what anybody else says. Men were created to, yes, feed a economy, but also support women, because women are the creators of life. Honestly, they and we get into this of like, yeah, we're so all men are so proud that we were the soldiers that went to war. You know what I mean? We're the ones that came back and fought the war, and now we deserve something, right? And I think that's how I look at it, right? You have all these men, war after war after war. World War One, World War Two, the Korean War, Spanish War. Other conflicts that Desert Storm, all that stuff, and it's like, well, yeah, we did this. We came back. Now we deserve something. But do we really? We did it to defend our women, right? We did it to defend our homes and what they help hold down while we were off, hunting, to bring back food for our family, for our women, to create life. And so until we can shift that kind of mentality with dudes, and dudes stop thinking they're the shit, thinking that, oh yeah, I got money, I'm the breadwinner, I'm this, I can get any girl I want. No, it's finding the right girl too that'll, support you and your family. And it goes back to like that mental health thing. We if men change for the better, then women will stop. Women will stop being those women that ghost other men, and then they'll have a sea of good men to pick. And now it really goes down to compatibility. You know what I mean? And what I mean? How you guys really vibe. And I know I'm talking like this is it's so easy, but like honestly, if we really figure out how we work together with our counterparts, then really we'll figure out, what our true like compatibility with other people are,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's just generations and generations of just trauma that we just need to unpack and shift thinking to or what it used to be. Honestly, support our women.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what in the case of mental health, I feel like you know, because I know our topic is about men's mental health, but kind of like mentioning earlier too, like Zavon said, like outside of feminism, masculinity, just the idea of mental health, you know, it's about breaking down our pride, it's just because like the trauma, the generational, the environment that we're in, it causes us to like fight or flight, right? And it's like like you said, Andrew, like going back to the hunter gatherers day, it's like there's always this sense of pride that we're always only allowed to do one thing in our lives. Like we're only supposed to be speaking for guys, since we're all guys in this room, obviously. It's like our pride and our culture says we have to be the breadwinners. We have to be the ones that take care of, we have to be the caretakers. We have to provide shelter and protection. And it's like one of those things where I feel like it comes down to pride. I mean, that's awesome that you brought up that Tupac song, because he mentioned it specifically, not even talking about relationships with women or caretakers or whatever. It's the idea that we have this built up pride that's environmental or generational, or trauma, as you mentioned it. And it's one of those things that keeps us down, And so yeah, I mean, again, no solutions, but again, if I had to go back to taking a pickaxe and chipping away at something, I would say it's that culture of pride, right? I mean, what do you guys like? How? What about it is so hard to break? Because we're breaking it right now. We literally are right now, us four, because we're
swing,
talking about
just wham, wham.
yeah.
Or what's that TikTok? Bing, 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 bing.
Because we're literally talking about our emotions and like all that stuff, but to the greater public, it's like, what about it is so hard? Or I don't find someone who has their pride all like puffing their chest out. I don't find that manly, or I don't find that like, oh, I want to be that guy. In me, I find the softer skills more attractive, like the ability to empathize, the ability to show kindness, or the ability to listen. Those are things that are more admirable to me, for me. And I think those are things that can possibly, bring peace to everyone, and at least create a chain reaction to possibly help in terms of bad mental health.
Yeah.
I mean, my last point I'll mention is like, I'm kind of one of those. I like working from home. I like kind of, I kind of appreciate, being in front of screen and just kind of doing things at my own pace. But like Tyler mentioned, one form of mental health or bad mental health is burnout. And, I feel that too. And there's days where I'm like, you know what, I'm just not going to work today, or I don't feel like working today. But you don't realize that until you acknowledge it with a lot of people. And like with my coworkers, we've been trying to make it a habit of getting together, not in person, but having weekly meetings of just us, no management, and just kind of like shooting the shit a little bit and just talking about how we're all feeling. And, and I start to discover, which I appreciate, that some of my coworkers are feeling burnout. They're feeling worse than me, or they're feeling the same as me, or they're, but to be able to give each other a space to just talk it out with no judgment, just listening and support, I think, goes a long way, you know? So it's just the idea, you know, like we're all getting older. Do you guys feel like after all I just said and talking about culture and pride, do you feel like the media that we see that is influenced this is the younger generation? Because maybe, you know, when we were all young, we were like, yeah, you know, we don't need to feel that shit. That's pussy stuff. You know, you know, like, because look at all the people we look up to, athletes, actors, rappers, musicians. If you think about it, if you really think about it, especially the new stuff now that we're watching, some of those people are actually younger than us. So, you know, do you feel like, you know, it's like this generational thing where every time we feel like, oh, we should keep holding on to our pride, is because we look up to these people that are on a pedestal technically in terms of pop culture, and we don't realize that they're actually younger than us, so that's why they're a little more immature. Because, you know, all my coworkers are older than me, and I feel like them acknowledging and trying to talk out what they're feeling is like a maturity thing. I don't know. I'm not trying to say people who hold in their emotions or are suffering through mental illness is immature. I'm not saying that. It's just more of like, you know, is it can I'm talking more of the culture thing. Is it a ages thing, you know?
Right.
I mean, maybe it could be like, you know, as you get older, you kind of like experience life and you learn more, right? You know what I mean? You figure out how to your input in different situations where you can kind of understand your emotions a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's also it is a generational thing. I think in regard of societal norms and all that stuff, I think that's the biggest part. Granted, mainstream media, social media, all of that stuff is a giant role in everything, right? But to say that also, you know, why is it so hard for people to really kind of just drop it, you know, and just be like, yo, look, let's just talk about our emotions, you know, like this is something that we should be doing, you know. We've been doing that for years, but that's us with kind of different thought process there. Um, it's like to say, as a comparison, you know, we're trying to undo something that's been in place for years, hundreds of years, right? Thousands of years even. And it's just that like societal norm, right? I think to my best kind of comparison to it to like help other people who are listening or viewing understand it too is like, think about if you were like an athlete, right? Purebred athlete, whatever, super athletic through high school and everything. Once you hit 20 or something, you're out of the game. You know, you're out of the game. You start, you know, just kind of taking it easy, relax. Your metabolism slows down. It happens to all of us. Let's be real here. But you know, if you're an athlete and stuff, and say like, I don't know, you hit your 20s, you stop working out, you stop doing those things. You're 4 or 5 years outside of your competitive sports and you put on 30, 40 pounds, right? Going into trying to work out and find that motivation and get into a class and everything or something. So you go and get a personal trainer and stuff, and they're training, I don't know, 50 people that are, you know, whatever, have the same issue, right? You're the only person under 25 in that group, or you're 20 or you're under 30. Everyone else is 50 in that group, right? And you constantly see like you have no issues getting back into a routine and all of that stuff. But you're looking at all these other people who have probably, you know, in their 40s and 50s have been living that type of life for 30 plus years, and they're trying to figure it out now. And they're trying to break habits they've been doing for 30 years, where it is like you, for instance, might have done it for like 2 or 3, 4 years. You know, it's easy to break that habit, where it is if you've been doing it for 20 to 30 years, much harder to do. So I think that also plays a role in it too, because we're starting to get to the generation now, even like you said, Stephen, in today's like sports and everything, that's a huge thing. People look up to athletes and everything, but looking at today's athletes, more and more starting to talk about like, mental awareness, mental health and everything. Biggest one lately, Dak Prescott, right? You had Hayden Hurst, who lost his brother, playing for the Falcons, lost his brother to suicide. He was depressed and he committed suicide. So him and his mom started a foundation and everything. So he's been advocating for it. Now you have Dak Prescott, who arguably the leader of that Dallas Cowboys team, who is gone. They've another topic completely. They suck right now. But after he went down with injury, but no doubt he's the leader of that team. It comes out before the season. It's like, you know what, after, the death of my brother and all this stuff, I'm not in a good headspace. I've been depressed. I've been having very suicidal type of thoughts, and it's a real thing. And I don't think I can lead a team if I'm not there mentally 100%. And a lot of people call them out on it, like, oh, you're just weak. You're a pansy. Da, 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 da. But he's out here advocating for mental health. He's in a position where, like, no, very much so that people will complain because everyone's like, shut up and do your job, play sports, da 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 da. Because that's how it is. Anytime anybody in the media, athlete, whatever, wants to say something or, voice their opinion or protest or whatever, it's like, oh no, you play basketball for a living and you make more money. Shut up and play the game, or football or baseball, whatever. It's like, oh, so now those people are not allowed to have opinions anymore, right? So it's years and years of just built up like that keeps knocking people down from like getting out there. And I think more and more nowadays you see athletes and people in the limelight and whatever trying to step forward and bring attention and really advocate for that kind of stuff. So like, I think it's slowly starting to go the way of like bringing more attention to it, but we're going to still be stuck in that kind of same status quo stigma of like, we're not allowed to talk about our feelings kind of thing. So I agree that media plays a huge part in it, but I think media is starting to very slowly and in very small quantities, kind of turn that table and kind of go the other direction. But we probably won't see it for a good amount of years at this point, but we can be hopeful. It's just one of those things. We can be hopeful, but I don't think it's going away anytime soon.
Yeah. Comes down to that culture though,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, it's hard, man, because I think the main thing is continue to make it be more aware of it, but easier said than done. It's just it kind of goes back to that second question. It's like, I think more than ever we need to acknowledge it, and that it's okay to go see a therapist or okay to express your emotions, but yeah, I think it's a tough one, but I think it's one of those things where you can only win small battles at a time.
Yeah, it's one of those things. You can't change everything overnight,
Mm-hmm.
At a time, it's small battles. So, and this is, no special case about this one. It's the same thing. Small steps, small victories, all that.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a solution right now? No. But do we have steps in making it happen and trying to defeat that status quo, or at least change it a little bit? Sure. Yeah. So with that, before we wrap it up, does anyone else have any other comments, thoughts on that kind of that last question, or anything else that we've talked about today so far? Cool. All right. So we're going to wrap it up. Like always, for those who are listening, we challenge you to kind of look back at this episode, look back at yourself. If you're a guy listening, or even if you're, female listening as well, ask yourself questions, or, ask your guy something, ask questions, self-reflect. I think today's message is kind of simple, even though it's very confusing at the same time to some. It might, just because it might be a state of denial, but we're going to end today with this message. We believe that we need to talk more openly about mental health. Suffering in silence isn't a safe or healthy option for any of the men in our lives. Check in with them, ask them how they're feeling, especially if one of them has experienced a recent event that could possibly trigger depression or any sort of, depressing thought. Look for changes in their behavior. Watch out for those depression type of symptoms. If you think someone you love is depressed, offer your support, listen, and most importantly, be patient. Encourage them to talk to their doctor or a mental health professional. That's something we can't harp on enough. We cannot fix anything ourselves. We can't be the people that are responsible for someone else's mental health. Please have them seek attention and help. And if they're not in a state to do so, help them find treatment services in their area. If you think there's something wrong and they can admit to that, help them. Because living with depression can definitely feel overwhelming and isolating. But the most important thing is let him know he's not alone. Help is available, and know that he can feel better. So with that, we wrap up tonight's episode on mental health, men's mental health. If you want to learn more about this, definitely go check out No Shave November or Movember, as they bring awareness. They raise funds for all of these things. Go check them out. Like always, if you have any questions, concerns, whatever that may be, if you want to dig deeper into this topic as well, ask yourself questions, reach out to us. Let's have a conversation. Otherwise, hope you guys have a good night. Our Story is Your Legacy. Check it out.